The presenting author that we have is Patti Callahan Henry. I don't even know where I found it, but it's called Surviving Savannah, and it's one of Patti's novels. I fell so in love with this book because I'm obsessed with Titanic. I didn't know that there was another shipwreck out there. And Patti has become such a good friend since. She's the New York Times bestselling author of 19 novels, including The Story She Left Behind, The Secret Book of Flora Lee, and Becoming Mrs. Lewis. She's the co-host and co-creator of Friends in Fiction, a weekly web show and podcast celebrating books, authors, and independent bookstores. Patti is also presenting author at this year's Nantucket Book Festival. Welcome, Patti Callahan Henry.
Thanks.
Love you.
Thanks for not petering out. The day's winding down and y'all are still here. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you, Tim, for those introductions. And I just want to say, as a Nantucketer myself, it is always such a joy to have an opportunity to be in conversation with other book lovers. So hi, everybody. And we are going to have an amazing conversation with such a joyful, inspiring, and extraordinarily talented writer. Patti,
Thank you.
Right. Patti and I have known each other for some time. I have to confess this. And Patti, before we get into this book, I just have to say that, like so many people in this room, I read a lot.
A lot.
Right? I love to read. And there's some books that stay with you. They just stay with you. Like you just keep coming back and saying, I want to reread this book because, right? You know those books that you say, they leave you with such a mark that you want to reread them to re-experience the joy of being in that space. That is how I feel about Becoming Mrs. Lewis.
Oh, thank you.
So if anybody in this room has never read Becoming Mrs. Lewis, I just urge you, in addition to the book we're going to talk about today, of course you can pick up any of her, I thought it was 18 books, so 19 books, but I urge you to read Becoming Mrs. Lewis. It is just such an incredible book. But let's get to this one.
It's hot in here. Okay.
Yeah, just all the good.
I just take my coat off.
All the good. Oh, one sec. I'm using this for my questions so that I don't have to look at notes. Just one second. I just want to make sure I get into the right place here to make this in the most.
While she's doing that,
Wait,
I want to say thank you to the Nantucket Book Festival. I am watching these volunteers humping it out there in the heat, checking on us, making sure everything's okay. Tim has not even stopped being on. And I know, it's unbelievable. And Mary Haft is just flitting around being perfect, and it's just been an amazing festival. And I want to thank everyone who is showing up. All right, let's go.
Okay, so let's start with the start.
Okay.
This novel was inspired by a real-time story.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about Barbara, the woman that was really which I think was the inspiration.
Oh, yeah.
Who was she? How did you discover her story? And what made you so taken with the story that it started to become the thread for this book?
Well, first, Heather, I want to say thank you. So Heather is an avid reader. And every season, she has a Heather's pick. And this book was a Heather's pick.
Yes.
And I got a mug that says Heather's pick on it. Yeah. And I have it at home, and I love it. I drink out of it all the time.
Excellent.
But that's one of my favorite subjects. And I love when other interviewers ask authors, what is the origin story? Can you tell the first spark? And I can. I thought this novel was going to be about Beatrix Potter. I am obsessed with Beatrix Potter because I am fascinated by children's illustrators. And Beatrix is so much more, as you know, than you think she is. She is way more than Peter Rabbit or Jemima Puddle Duck. She was an entrepreneur, a mycologist, an environmentalist, a conservationist, an illustrator, a storyteller. But when she was a child, she made up a coded language so her mother couldn't read her diary. So smart, because I got in trouble for my diary, so...
you got in trouble for your diary? We're going to come back to that.
We're going to come back to that. Because it was mostly like, I hate my mom, I hate my dad.
Okay.
Yeah. And I've been keeping a diary since I was about 8 years old. So I fell down this rabbit hole of women who make up languages. And that is where I found Barbara Newhall Follett. And the entire novel jumped from one train track to the next.
So what happened to her, to Barbara Follett? What happened? And where did you find the, first of all, where did you find the breadcrumbs to her story? And what happened with her? Like, what is her story?
It is fascinating. So Barbara Newhall Follett was a child prodigy. She was born in 1927, and she could read and write, much like Joy Davidman in Becoming Mrs. Lewis, by the time she was 3 years old. She could play any instrument they handed her. She wrote her first children's fantasy when she was 7 years old. The only reason it wasn't published is because the house caught fire and the manuscript burned, so she rewrote it. So Barbara's first book was published when she was 12 years old. It's called The House Without Windows. It was published by Knopf, and it's a children's fantasy novel. She was hailed as a literary genius. She was hailed as the next big thing, and as we know with a lot of prodigies, they flame out. Her life got crazier and crazier. Her potential was never fulfilled through many hardships, toils, and tribulations. By 1939, she was married to a man named Nick, and he admitted to having an affair. And they got in a marital fight, and she walked out the back door of their apartment in December of 1939 and was never seen again.
Never.
Never seen again.
Is that book still in print?
Oh, yeah.
Knopf?
I usually carry it with me, but I wanted to take a carry-on to Nantucket. But one of the biggest things she did as a child prodigy genius was create her own language. So I found her because I was looking at women who created languages. And she created a fantasy world, an entire language, Heather. And when she disappeared, this woman who had this huge best-selling novel, was known as a genius, all of her work, 16 boxes of her short stories, books, letters, and the language she created sit in a dusty archive at Columbia University.
And how did you get to it?
Well, I was researching women who make up languages, and I ran across this article about her on NPR. And when I read it, Heather, I had that thing. You get it when you read, I get it when I write, like down your neck. I see other writers here, right. Dawn, Sarah, you get the thing, right? Down the back of your neck, down your arms, where you know that this is a story you want to tell. And to be honest, I spent a whole year writing that book from her point of view as I did Mrs. Lewis. And then came the month of despair, where I talked to my agent, who's sitting right there, and we agreed, because she was right, and I knew it, it just wasn't working. And part of that was because
that must be a terrible feeling.
Terrible. It led to what I commonly refer to as the month of despair. Yeah. And so it was, I had to really sit down and say, what is this book about? Why did I even care? And it was the language. It was her ability to take language and create another world. So I decided to fictionalize her. I didn't want to give a fake ending to a real person. I felt like I wasn't honoring her. And she is a completely unsolved mystery.
Unbelievable. You know, this notion of doing research and then coming across something just by accident. I just have to tell you this. The very first Heather's Pick was a book called The Secrets of Grazia de Rossi. It's an amazing story that takes place in Italy during the time of the Medicis, basically in that time. But the whole story started with a piece of microfiche found in the library, the New York Library, about a real live conversation between a Jewish young girl of a poor family and the Contessa of Florence at the time. There was microfiche of their conversation, and the entire book stemmed from that. And that's just, and it's a real life conversation, and you know, a 400-page book. So I'm fascinated that that writers can find a something.
One little seed right? And what's even more fascinating, at least it is to me, because I ask this of other authors I interview. On Sunday, I'm with John Waterman, and I have lots of questions for him about that too. But there's this idea that you could have put Barbara Newhall Follett's tiny bit of information, one little article in NPR, in front of 200 authors, and they would have gone, that's interesting, and kept going. But then there's the one author that microfiche or that article gives the chills down your neck and your arms, because all of a sudden, whatever curiosities we carry inside ourselves, and it's probably how you pick books, right? We carry around a curiosity and wonder of the world, which is why we read and why we write. And when something kind of tickles our curiosity or wonder, we run straight towards it.
And that in itself could be a whole discussion.
Yeah.
Curiosity, actually nurturing curiosity, recognizing it, reinforcing it. Curiosity is actually the coin of the realm. So I suspect that novelists or even nonfiction people, I have always been fascinated with that. But okay, let's get into the story.
But I want to say, it's not even in the creative world, like curiosity in life.
Yes, oh, that's what I mean.
Right? Like
being
it's
curious.
The coin, yeah. Like to know somebody,
right.
To wonder where something came from, to learn a new thing. Like
right.
Curiosity is what has driven me and often gotten me in trouble since I was a kid.
This could be an entire discussion because
we'll have to have a separate one.
Because to be curious, you need to give your time and your brain the space to be curious. But if we're always scrolling and scrolling and scrolling and addicted to that next hit, it pushes out the opportunity for curiosity. So yes, let's come back to that one day, because we only have a short time here and you want to hear about the book.
But I feel like if I hadn't
You can tell this interview's already out of control by the interviewer.
We're already off on a tangent. But I'll bring it back to the book. Because if I hadn't been curious enough about, like if I kept in my mind, I'm only going to write this about Beatrix Potter, like this is my story, I would have never found Barbara.
Right. And then you just went. So it's the perfect segue, because the opening of the book is exactly that, right? But in this case, it's a daughter with this incredible relationship. You can just feel the relationship with the mom and the nurturing and the relationship. And I'm just settling into what I love, because I am a mom first before anything, And the mom walks out.
Yeah. And the real Barbara never had children and had a very unhappy marriage. And that is where their lives take a V.
Right.
Is that I give my character, whose name is Bronwyn, I give her a happy marriage. I move her to the South. She has a daughter named Clara. And Clara has a magical childhood with this imaginative mother who, she says, believed in make-believe and was interesting and taught her made-up words. And then at 8 years old, her mother vanished and took her language with her and left behind the story she left behind a sequel to her famous novel written in her secret language. And then she took the language with her. So I wanted to make it high stakes, not only this mother hunger of a mother who was a good mother until she disappeared, but she takes with her the only thing that will help her understand
the key to the secret language. So what is it about secret languages that you find so fascinating? What do secret languages mean to you?
I'm fascinated by language and how we use it since I was young. And I think part of that has to do with the fact that story has saved me for all of my life. Libraries have been my sanctuaries. Books have been the place that the world made sense to me when nothing else. And hasn't that been a recurring theme this weekend, y'all? So many of the authors have said that libraries were sanctuaries and books helped them make sense in a world that didn't make sense to them. And when I was in high school, I had moved around a lot. And when I got to high school, my parents said, we're moving one more time. And you can go to the same high school.
Why did you move so much?
My dad is a preacher.
Okay.
And so we kept they changed churches. We moved from outside Philadelphia to South Florida. That's a memoir I can't write yet. But anyway, they said, you don't have to move again. You can go to the same high school, 10th through 12th grade. And I said, that's awesome. I'm going to be popular and make friends. And I joined the Latin club. Didn't work. So
I could have told you.
Yeah, I didn't have you around. I wish I would have. But I fell in love with language and where language comes from and how we use it and how we manipulate it and what was our first language, which led to falling in love with mythology and how we use that to make sense of the world. And I thought I was taking Latin because I was going to nursing school, but I was taking Latin because I was going to be a writer, and I didn't know it yet.
And there is something, right? Last year on this, I think this very stage, I interviewed one of our collective heroes,
Yeah.
Margaret Atwood, and
watched it.
oh yeah, that was fun, right?
Yeah.
And you know what she says? You know, a word after a word after a word is power.
That's exactly right.
And words matter, and the care. But the notion of made-up languages is just so fascinating because it's so complicated. And that was an extra complexity that you added to the novel. Did that make it hard to deal with the secret language? And did it make that?
No, I thought it was fun because I have never had a desire to make up a secret language. And as I was doing research on why would somebody make up a language, right? We have Tolkien, he made up Elvish. We have...
And Beatrix Potter.
And Beatrix Potter made a coded language. C.S. Lewis has made a couple words. Some of the words authors have made it into our lexicon. For example, Dr. Seuss made up the word nerd, and it made it into our language.
Right.
Lewis Carroll and his hilarious poem Jabberwocky made up the word chortle. We use it, right? So these authors who make up a language, and as I was looking at Barbara, I thought, what would make someone create an entire world and language? And I read a book that a psychiatrist wrote about her. And you know, as authors, we're just pretend psychiatrists anyway for our characters. And I believe that Barbara made up a language because she believed that the words we had weren't enough. They weren't enough for how she felt and how she especially saw the natural world. So she needed her own.
The whole idea of a secret language is amazing. But let's talk a bit about the settings. I've heard you say, or I've read in things that where you've been interviewed, that you pay a lot of attention to the settings, to the way which settings you pick, how you describe them. Say a little bit, because this is another cross the pond. I mean, Becoming Mrs. Lewis is across the pond. Yep. This is another cross the pond story. And say a little bit about, the three main settings: her home, in London, and then in the Beatrix Potter area. Say a little bit, say a little bit about it.
So when I talk about setting, authors, we often say that setting should be as important as a character, right? It needs to be a character in itself. I like to add an extra layer to that and say, I want this setting to be so important that the book couldn't take place somewhere else and be the same story. So if I pull that story out of the setting, then it's not that story. It can't be anywhere England just because I like England. It can't be anywhere America. And so in this novel, you visit three places. You visit Bluffton, South Carolina, which is very much a place of my heart. It's where we have a home, and it's where I go to write, and it's a very magical and mystical landscape, what the Irish might call a thin place. It feels like that. The second setting is London during the Great Smog of 1952. Who has heard of the Great Smog of Who has heard of it because of The Crown? Right? That's where, Now, it's in Mrs. Lewis.
Right, it's in Mrs. Lewis.
Yeah, she leaves to go visit Lewis during the Great Smog. But it's the greatest natural disaster that had happened to England, and it is when it happened over 4 days in December when the fog and the pollution settled on the city of London. Thousands of people died, and they say in the end, tens of thousands died because of the poison and the way it wouldn't sat on the city. It ended up leading to Winston Churchill's and England's first Clean Air Act. But that's not part of the story. That's just a side piece. But I wanted that in it because when my Clara and Winnie is my character's little 8-year-old daughter, and we'll talk a bit more about her if you want. And Clara and Winnie go to London and land right in the middle of the great smog of London. And it is very much not only dangerous because Winnie was born early and has fragile lungs, but it's a real metaphor for not being able to see your way through and being so blind.
An opaque
and danger everywhere, and being so focused on what you want. And you and I both, mom first, grandma first.
Right.
And all of a sudden, Clara realizes that she's put her daughter in danger in this
who's the granddaughter of the mom who disappeared.
Yes.
Right.
And she's so single-minded on finding her mother that she's now put her daughter in danger. Okay, so the third setting is the Lake District of England. And the reason we went there is because I wanted to visit. No, I'm kidding. The reason that we went to the Lake District is because it's Beatrix Potter lands. And I would have never known about Barbara if it wasn't for Beatrix.
Right.
So
for me, I'm a big Beatrix Potter fan too. I told you, my husband actually made was part of making a movie about her called Becoming Mrs. Potter. Did you ever see that, Becoming Mrs. Potter?
Yes.
Isn't that so good?
Yeah.
Okay, so, and when I came across that, it's about 2/3 of the way through, or a little bit more than 2/3 of the way through, I was like, oh my gosh, Beatrix Potter's appeared in this
she
book.
shows up in the book.
She just she pops up, and it's almost like, it's almost like the rabbit is there. So one of the things that, a little bit more serious, one of the things that has struck me in 4 or 5 of your books that I've read, it feels like uncovering the unknown stories of women is central, in some way important to you. So first, am I right? It's a real question.
you are totally right. I think I've talked to a couple authors here today, and it's been asked on stage, is there a thread that runs through your work, right? And sometimes we see it, and sometimes we don't, right? So I know a thread that runs through my work is this juxtaposition and this kind of juggling of logic and imagination. I visited a lot, right? I used to be a nurse. My master's degree is in nursing. I live in my imagination and make up people and languages. Same person, right? And so this juggling of the seen and the unseen, the logic and the imagination. But the other thread is pulling these threads that flip the story you think you know on its head, right? So Mrs. Lewis, there's Shadowlands, there's all these stories about joy. None of them are right. Nobody read her letters or her journals or her, private work or her poetry that was only found about 8 years before I wrote the novel. Barbara, Newhall Follett, Beatrix Potter, and even in The Secret Book of Flora Lee about taking this idea of sending children away. Let's hear a story from their point of view. So I love that, flipping it over and pulling that thread.
And going deep into the research. And do you think that this notion of that there are just likely so many women with deeply interesting stories whose stories somehow got lost, whether within their own circle or within a larger circle if they had, what is that?
It's history.
Herstory, yes. History. Yeah, exactly.
It's
no, I got it.
Story. Okay.
Yeah, no.
And I think,
I got it.
So, so many grand actions by men have been influenced or supported, and this idea of the woman behind the man has always chafed at me a little bit.
Yeah.
Which is why I got in trouble a lot when I was a kid. With the preacher father, the submission thing, the women submit to men.
Did you rebel against him?
Oh, gosh, yes.
How did that go?
Still probably am, and he's 87.
Oh, yeah.
that's for therapy.
Yeah, how did that go?
It didn't go well. I was grounded a lot.
And is that what turned you into writing diaries and things to get what you were feeling out?
Oh, 100%. I have been keeping like a diary, like I said, since I was 7 or 8 years old. And I think a lot of that has to do with the alchemy of taking what's here and putting it here. Because if we can alchemize the things in our life into story, then we can make sense of it, right? We can take all the broiling thoughts and feelings and try to unravel them on paper. So there's this poet I love, and his name is Padraig Tuma, and he's Irish, obviously. And he wrote an essay for On Being with Krista Tippett about story. And he said, some people say there are 7 plots in the world, and we write them over and over. Some people say there are 3 plots in the world. I would know this if I went to MFA school, which I did not. 3 plots that people tell over and over. He says there is 1 plot in all the world. I'm not saying he's right, although I think he is. And that plot is a question. And the question is, who am I? Don't you love that?
That's in my daily meditation from David G. That's what it starts with.
Who am I?
Who am I?
Yeah.
Who am
and that
I? I hear that every morning.
Every great plot and story comes out of the genuineness of that question.
Wow.
And so I am sure that I've been trying to do that by writing about other women, because then they're me and I'm them. Right.
Wow, that's really, it's really worth hearing
that you ask that every morning.
Yeah, it's in this. I do this same meditation every morning, and it starts with that question: who am I? And I don't know if you're, because you riff on that question. The answer changes and it morphs, right? It changes.
We are many.
We are many.
We are many, and that's why we have many stories.
And I don't know how many men are in here, but women especially. Yes.
And our parts contradict other parts, right?
And are you a proponent of journaling? Like, would you say even to people who are not writers or who don't think they have a writer buried deep in them, would you say just as a human, as a curious but also introspective human, are you a proponent of journaling as something that you feel is additive to life?
Huge. In fact, often the presents I give people are beautiful notebooks. And I collect beautiful notebooks and I give beautiful notebooks. And even when I came to Canada with you, I bought all those notebooks at Indigo because they were gorgeous. And I was like, I haven't seen these anywhere else. And I shipped home like 7 notebooks. Right. And my notebooks then give birth to other notebooks, right? And then I brainstorm in them, I journal in them. I'm a big proponent of the artist's way. And morning pages. And so for writers, kind of clearing the decks. Does anybody here do morning pages?
Yeah.
Yes,
and the artist way.
Yes, I know you do, Julian. And so like clearing the decks with those morning pages, yes, I'm a huge proponent of journaling.
There's a great deal about the healing nature of art, the natural world, poetry, and story. Things I know are deep within you and likely deep within the soul of many people in this room. And excuse me, I sort of feel like I have my back to some people over there. Apologies for that. But yes, there's a lot about that, about nature. Of course, Beatrix Potter, there's a crossover. Say a little bit about that, about how you weave it into your stories and in a way that feels so integrated into the narrative.
I think we all need healing things in our life, and it's been a recurring theme at this festival, the natural world, hiking, walking. I love what Geraldine called it this morning. What did she say, rambling? I like that word better. I'm a big rambler, and I had a terrible hiking accident about 11 years ago, but I did not quit hiking. I think there's a groundedness in being out in the natural world that you cannot get anywhere else. And especially if you don't take your phone, except to be saved with 911. But other than that, like there's there's a groundedness that I don't get anywhere else, and I wanted to infuse that. And because Beatrix Potter was such a rebel in her time and created, maybe not healed, but created her life with art and the natural world. When she started making money, she bought all the farms around her. And when she passed away, she left them all to the UK Trust so that we, meaning me, can hike all those trails and they're the same as what she did. I can walk from her house up to Moss Carn and sit where she kept her little rowboat because she saved it, because she understood that art, an expression of art and the natural world, heals us, grounds us, and and if anything, it creates a life that's meaningful and curious.
She was fierce. Oh, she was a fierce woman. I would love to have been able to interview her. I just would have loved that.
I think she might have scared me a little bit. Like, she was a gentle soul.
But she was fierce.
She did not bear fools lightly. No.
Okay, 10 minutes. Great. Okay. Well, we're okay.
Sorry,
good.
We could talk on this.
I know, of course. This question actually means a lot to me because the book, at its core, it's an ode to mothers and daughters, right? At its core is an ode to mothers and daughters. The mother that disappeared, the daughter that searched for her, and the young mother and her commitment to her daughter, who she takes on the journey, right? So talk a little bit about that theme in this book and your own desire to keep exploring that theme. Because again, in other books, you also experience, thinking about Joy and her two sons that she dragged across the pond away from their dad because she had to be with him, but deciding this would be good for her sons if her sons got that exposure.
Also, her husband was an abusive alcoholic.
That
so
was
there was that
reason.
too.
Yes,
but,
okay, but for sure. But I'm curious as you're sitting and talking to us now, not in this story, but you, about this, the mother-daughter.
I think the mother-daughter relationship is so primal in a daughter, especially a daughter's life. And my mother is the firstborn daughter. I am the firstborn daughter. My daughter is a firstborn daughter, and she has a daughter who was the firstborn. So there's this 4-generation firstborn daughters, straight down the line. And I'm fascinated and will never unravel the difference of my relationship with my mother compared to my relationship with my daughter, and how we're very open and very close, and her relationship with me, and now my relationship with my 6-year-old granddaughter, who is hilarious and wild, and my daughter deserves her. And, she always looks at me and goes, oh my gosh, what am I gonna do? I'm like, I don't know, let's see how that goes. But I just think that it's such a primal relationship, and generationally we change through time and how we deal with that. But as you said when we first got here, the first thing you are is a mom, and the first thing I am is my daughter and son's mother.
Right.
I have a lot of titles, maybe a lot of masks, a lot of jobs, but my daughter is expecting with her third, and I am in the middle of a really crazy book tour and being on the road. She gave
she calls.
She gave an SOS call. I flew out there and took care of the little ones for 8 days while she tried to recover. So, that's what we do. Right. So
totally get that. We only have a couple of minutes left, and I always like to leave the opportunity for other people to have the fun that I'm having here. Yes.
So some in the room might know you from your previous novels. Like you wrote 12 contemporary women's fiction novels before, in 2018, you switched to historicals with Becoming Mrs. Lewis and then Surviving Savannah. Once Upon a Wardrobe and Flora, and now this book. So I'd love to hear you talk about what sparked that shift.
Oh.
And also,
That's a good one.
where are you headed next from here?
You mean writing or physically? Writing? You mean my next event or physically? Okay, so I never have thought about it in terms of I want to write in this genre or that genre. We opened this by talking about curiosity and wonder. I'm going to go where the story pings me, right? And so when I grew up reading C.S. Lewis, right? I mean, to be honest, often struggling with some of the things he said, but enamored with Narnia and some of his more creative writing. And I knew about Joy Davidman because I'd seen Shadowlands. And I read this article about her and thought, oh my gosh, this would make an incredible novel. But I knew my publishing house probably wouldn't want it for me because I was writing contemporary Southern women's fiction. I lived in Atlanta for 27 years. I live in Alabama now. And I thought that they're not gonna want this. And so I wrote it in secret and never thought that it meant I was changing, trajectories. Mm-hmm. And I was, because like I talked about before, I realized that's what I want to do. I want to take these nuggets, pull them out, and flip them over. So that's
so good. Great question. Anybody else have a final question that they would like? Yes.
Hi, Ashley. Congratulations on your new novel.
Yeah, this is my pub week. I just wanted to know for this particular novel, because I know how long it took up the rest, you told me, but for research, how many years of research for this book?
So this was probably a year. I don't separate it like that, right? I don't have, no, these are my research months, these are my writing months, these are my editing months. Everything is going on at the same time. I'm not a big outliner. I don't sit down and say, then this is going to happen and this is going to happen, and I'm mapping the hero's journey. That's not how I work. And I think it's an amazing way to work and would probably save me 6 months of editing, but it's not how I work. And so for me, I just kind of follow the curiosity and head in that. Does that answer your question? Okay.
So I have one. Of course.
Hi.
Yes.
As a reader and a bookseller, thank you for your stories. They are some of my all-time favorites, and I agree with you, Heather. Becoming Mrs. Lewis, I read it over and over again.
I know.
It's amazing.
It's incredible.
So to play on words, the story that she left behind, you said that this book began with, was going to be a book about Beatrix Potter, and then she ends up making just a cameo in this book. Yeah. What happened to that story that you left behind? Is this something that you would or could revisit?
By the way, this is Polly Buxton of Buxton Books in Charleston.
Oh.
Amazing. So I don't know. I never say never, right? I have tons of pages of Beatrix's story. And that has happened to me one other time. I thought I was going to write a novel about Florence Nightingale. And I did the research, and I started the novel, and I got about 100, 150 pages in and realized that's all I was going to write about, that I'd written about what I cared about, is the best way to describe it. So that one is called Wild Swan and is an audio-only Audible original, read by Cynthia Erivo, by the way, and who also reads The Secret Book of Flora Lee. But, so I don't know what would become of it, but probably something at some point. It's not what I'm working on right now, but she's fascinating. So once I figure out what to do with what I have about her, nothing is ever never. But thank you for asking.
It's the story she left behind.
Yeah, there you go.
Look, I know we have to be out of here, but lucky for me, I'm going to get to...
That went so fast.
Lucky for me, I'm going to get to talk to you more later on. Yes. But Patti, every time we get to be together, it's like I'm sitting down with a really good girlfriend and just having a yak. So, but really not, with an incredible author. And the depth of yourself that you put into these is obvious. So thank you.
Thank you, Heather. Thank you. Thank you for coming. Thank you.